Hello and welcome back to Bits and Bobs. Now if you're watching this video then you are likely a coin collector and probably have some old pennies perhaps lying around, some old silver coins like this, George V, and a farthing and so on. But have you ever thought, although these are nice coins to look at and collect, have you ever thought what were they worth when they were used? When this coin was made in 1882, what could one penny buy? Well, today we're going to go through monarch by monarch, beginning with Queen Elizabeth II and going right back to the Great Recoinage of 1817 under the reign of George III, and finding out what could coins buy, because this coin here, as we can see, features the portrait of King George VI. But back in George VI England in 1940, what could sixpence buy you? Or what could the amount of silver in the coin buy you, because it's made of silver? So that's what we're going to do today, and we'll begin with Queen Elizabeth II. Now I must confess, I do have some cheat sheets here that have the values on of the coins we'll be looking through. So let's begin here with Elizabeth II. What we'll do for these is I get a date from their reign, the monarch's reign, that is halfway through their reign, roughly, and for Elizabeth II it's halfway through her reign while pre-decimal coins were used. So about 1960 or so was halfway through the reign of Elizabeth II using pre-decimal coins. So what I'll do is I'll get a handful of change, as you can see there's the numbers. I'll get a handful of change and we can just sort of see what that would have been worth with the numbers that actually was. For instance, a shilling in the reign of Elizabeth II in 1960, a shilling could buy you what £1.44 could today, although a shilling of course is only 12 pence. So I'll put that to the side there, and we're going to get some coins to sort of best visualize this comparison and the exchange rate between old coins and today's money in the time of Elizabeth II in 1960. In 1960, a half crown was worth £3.61 today. So half crown could buy perhaps like a bus fare or a meal deal, quite a valuable coin, half a crown. Then we have the 1960 florin, and in 1960, 2 shillings or a florin could buy you £2.88 worth of stuff. So again, quite a good bit of money, a florin, more than a £2 coin is today. That's the highest value coin we have today, so a good buying power for the florin. The shilling coin in 1960 could buy you £1.44 worth of stuff. So, you could easily pop into the shop and get something quite decent for a shilling, but of course today, 12 pence really cannot buy much. A sixpence, just 6p, of course today, 6p is almost worthless, but in 1960 it could buy you 72 pence worth of stuff today, so again much more of a buying power than it has or would have today. The classical brass threepence in 1960, what could that buy you? It could buy you 36 pence worth of stuff, so a small packet of sweets perhaps you could get with just a threepence, or very cheap stuff could be bought back in the day, or of course it wouldn't be cheap to them, but it would feel cheap now as these coins were worth more back then. We then have the smaller coins. We have, for instance, the penny here. Just 1 penny back in 1960 could buy you 12 pence of the stuff today. So more of an equivalent to a 10 pence piece, perhaps. A decent bit of change after you buy something could be a penny. And we then have the halfpenny. Halfpenny and farthing are worth, small change. But, if we look at the farthing there, the lowest value coin in circulation had a value of 3 pence, which was the farthing of today's money. But of course, today, 3 pence, we have coins worth 3 times less than the farthing was in 1960. Food for thought. So there we go. That is a handful of Elizabethan change from pre-decimal times. And so this pile of coins here, which is worth, of course, that's 2 shillings and 6 pence. So you've got there 3 shillings, 5 shillings, 6 shillings, and then we've got 3, 4, and a quarter. So 6 shillings, 4 and a quarter pence we have here, and that could buy you, in today's money, £9.22 worth of stuff. So, quite comparable to a £10 note or some just, loose change back in the day. But let's move on. Let's move back in time now to the reign of King George VI. This is from the year 1945. So we'll get the new coins and have a look at what they were worth even further back in time. Right then, so here we are back in 1945. We have silver, 50% in the coins. But how much are they worth and what do they buy in today's money? So this half crown coin just looks like, just a coin, but that was actually worth £6.76 back in 1945. So, that's quite a lot of money. Perhaps, a low wage could even be half a crown an hour for a starting job. So, quite a valuable coin back then. A florin in 1945 was worth £5.40. So the equivalent of a £5 note was a florin back in, World War II era. The shilling coin here was worth £2.70, so considerably more than a £2 coin today. You'd have a shilling to buy whatever you needed for a few quid, or of course back then, a bob. We have now, this is the sixpence from 1945, which is worth, or was worth back then, £1.35. So I guess the equivalent, a bit more buying power to a pound coin, pound coin, 150 kind of thing today would be used with a sixpence back then. Moving on to the threepence, we can see here from 1945, that was worth 68 pence, so more, 50p today, threepence back then, comparable in values and buying powers. We then have the penny from 45 being worth 22 pence, so comparable to a 20p today or a penny back then. The halfpenny coin in 1945 was worth 11 pence, so comparable to a 10 pence piece today or just a halfpenny back then for the same buying power. And the farthing was worth 5 pence, so you have a 5p today or a farthing back then. And then the whole sort of small change here from the half crown down to the farthing, which is again, 6 and a bit shillings. You've got 6 and a bit shillings. So just for 6 and a bit shillings, less than half a pound, as of course a pound was 20 shillings. But for just 6 and a bit shillings, this totals to £17 and 72 pence. So, that's almost, not quite almost, but, quite close to £20 today for just about a third of a pound back then in small change. But of course, we'll now move back to the next monarch back in time, who is George V. Let's have a look, and this is from 1925. Now then, into the reign of King George V. This is from 1925. The half-crown coin here was worth £9.53, so almost equivalent, only 47 pence away, to being worth £10 of today's money, with just a half crown, an eighth of a pound back then. So a good buying power for this coin. We then have the 1925 florin. What could a florin buy in 1925? Well, it could buy, in today's money, £7 and 62 pence worth of stuff for just a florin back then. You can see the shilling there is £3.81, so, almost £4, two £2 coins, or whatever you have today for that money, for just a shilling back then. Even the humble little sixpence, the tanner, was worth a whopping £1.90 back in 1925. So this coin here, when released, had a similar buying power as a £2 coin does today. So these are equivalent kind of coins in their time periods. So that's quite cool to think of. We then have the threepence, worth 95 pence. So this is equivalent to a pound coin, a pound coin today, or a little old threepence back in the day in 1925. The penny coin was worth 32 pence. So a bit, similar. A few of these and you can get a pound. So a few pennies for a pound in today's money. That's quite cool to think of. And then therefore the halfpenny was 16 pence. And the farthing, just a little farthing, just a quarter of a penny, this coin was worth 8 whole pence, which isn't much, but it's closer to a 10 pence today. It was just a quarter of a penny back then. And there's the buying power. So how much would this be altogether? We have the half crown, the florin, the shilling, sixpence, the threepence, the penny, the halfpenny, and the farthing. So some small change there. 6 and a bit shillings. I'll just budge that over. 6 and a bit shillings. What is it worth today? It would be worth £24.37 today. So 25 quid for just 1/3 of a pound, showing that the pound and the coins of the pound were just much more valuable back in the day. So it made sense to have, half pennies, half of half pennies, and such small coins. But now we'll go back to before George V with King Edward VII. Let's have a look. What could coins buy back in 1905 in the reign of King Edward VII? Well, let's have a look. So the half-crown coin, I do not have the very rare 1905 half-crown coin, I must say, but a half-crown in 1905 could buy you £19 and 5 pence worth of stuff today. So this coin, back in the day, would be worth close to a £20 note today, and it's worth only 1/8 of a pound. Pretty cool to think about how, how valuable silver was back then and how valuable coins were. The classical Britannia here, Standing Britannia florin, this is a 1905 one, and when produced it could buy £15 and 24 pence worth of stuff back in the day. So, a good hourly wage, perhaps you could be making a decent, Edwardian gentleman could be making perhaps, a florin an hour or so, around a florin or half crown an hour for a good, decent job back then. We have a shilling here from 1906. Again, 05 was a very rare year for coins. But in that year, a shilling was worth £7.62. So quite a lot more than a £5 note today, or just a little silver shilling back in the day of Edward VII. Very, very cool indeed. a sixpence coin. Here we have it, 1905 sixpence. This was worth £3.81. So, just a good value to these coins. That sixpence today just couldn't buy anything, but £3.81, that's, a decent bit of food from the shops, a little garden tool perhaps, whatever they bought back then, that's a good bit of purchasing power for just sixpence. We have a silver threepence here, the classic. This is a 1902 one. And that could buy you, back in the day, threepence could buy, almost £2. A little silver threepence, we see these today and they're just, threepence. But like, back then, that's almost £2 worth of buying power. That's quite a good, that could have been a bus fare back in the day. A threepence, very nice. Then the penny was worth 64 pence, so more than a 50p, the humble 1 penny in 1905. The halfpenny was worth 32 pence, so just a few halfpennies and you've got a whole pound of buying power in today's money. And then finally the farthing was worth almost 20 pence in today's money, so you can see why, although it seems silly today, a quarter of a penny, is worth 17 pence today. So actually, it's not just silly to have a quarter of a penny back then. And what we'll do the classical thing for this video, the 6 and a bit shillings of all these small change denominations. What could 6 and a bit shillings, or one of each coin design, buy you back in 1905? Well, it could buy you, today's money is worth £48.76, almost 50 quid for just some small change, a third of a pound. And now we'll move back in time further to the reign of Queen Victoria. Moving into Victoria's reign in the year 1870, something very unexpected, you might think, happens, as actually the coins have less of a buying power. As going forward from 1870 to 1905, the sort of height of the British Empire, because so much was sort of gained financially from the empire, 30 trillion from around the empire, the pound actually got strengthened so much that coins were worth more sort of, going forward than they were in the past. The currency was being strengthened rather than, inflated away, which is quite a good thing for them then. So the coins we can see here are actually worth a little less going back to 1870. For instance, the half crown is worth 1894, and these are, the 1870s coins that would have been used. We have the old Gothic florin here, would have been worth exactly £15. So that's still a good, quite a decent buying power, and very similar to the Edward ones. It was held pretty much quite flat, a little bit up of growth of the pound, so therefore going backwards, we're going down. So yeah, the florin worth about £15, the shilling £7.50. So these coins had actual good value to them. £7.50, that's a good value to a silver shilling. We have £3.75 there for the sixpence. In the 1870s, the threepence was worth £1.88. A penny in mid-Victoria's reign. Here we can see the one from 1870. 1870, the penny was worth 63 pence. So still much more than a 50p today. The halfpenny was then, of course, therefore worth 32 pence. And the farthing, still very much needed, as it was worth 16 pence, so still pretty close to 20 pence of today. And that's actually still the 1905, but it would have been obviously a Victorian one. So there we go. So there's these coins. Now they're very similar when we do our thing here of what was the coinage worth, 6 and a bit shillings worth of it, one of each small change coin. What was this worth? In 1870. It was worth, so very similarly to Edward VII, the 6.5 shillings or 6 and a bit shillings was worth 48 pence and £18 in Queen Victoria's reign. So still quite, 50 quid for 6 and a bit shillings, a third of a pound. That's 150 times loss of the value to today. But back then, the pound was actually going up in value. So therefore, as we go back in time, it appears to be going down. So let's move further back in time now to the reign of King William IV. So in the reign of William IV, a half crown was worth £19.91. So a really solid comparison there with a £20 note today or a William IV half crown back then. So, £20 for a half crown, it's a massive value for this coin. A coin worth £20, that's not what we have today. That's, the biggest value coin today is only £2. So coins definitely had a value back then. There is no florin made in William IV's reign. So we move on to the shilling, and the shilling was worth, I'll put this sheet down here actually just to help. The shilling was worth £7.97. So, a good value there for the shilling. The William IV sixpence, nice coin, just a small little bit of coinage, a small bit of silver, actually worth £3.99, so £4 for just 6p back in William IV's reign. And then we move on to the threepence, which is worth £2. A £2 coin today, or just a threepence back then. You know, this is actually Victoria one. I don't have any William ones, but you know, the point stands. Just 3p for 2 whole pounds. Then onto the copper coins. A penny was worth 67p in this time. So a coin, you know, definitely buying power within this coin. 67p. The halfpenny was worth 33p, and the farthing was worth 18p. And because the farthing is worth 18p at this time, you know, a half farthing is actually issued as well during this time. Just grab one there for you, and this is one from a bit later, but the half farthing existed. This is 1/8 of a penny. Today, of course, that sounds just stupid, 1/8 of a penny, but it was worth 9p back then. So, you know, is the 10p stupid today? Perhaps, but you know, you can buy stuff for 10p or a few 10p's as you could for a half farthing. And although because there's no florin, we won't do the little add up thing of stuff because you know, it won't be the same. But it is very similar to Victoria's reign, as it's sort of inflation at this point and everything was pretty steady. There's ups and downs. It was pretty steady across the board, with a half crown being worth about £20 in Edward VII, Victoria, and William IV's reign. Now there is a big change though coming up for the next reign, which is King George IV. Let's have a look. So if we look here at the coins of George IV, we can see they're actually worth considerably less than they were in the reigns of, you know, monarchs who've gone through before. The best way to visualize this is, let's say here in this corner of the screen, this is for instance 1800, and this here is 1900 in this corner of the screen. Now because the pound's going up, the trajectory looks like this of the pound's buying power. So actually, of course, it's going up. Today, of course, it's going down with inflation. But because it's going up, and as we're going back in time, along the bottom here back in time, the pound seems to go down as we're going back in time. That just shows, therefore, that the pound is actually rising in value. Because in the time of George IV, as you can see here, a half crown of George IV, 1464, a shilling of George IV, 588, so still good buying powers for coins, when coins could actually buy stuff. The sixpence, this isn't one of George IV, it's the only one I have for this era, but that could buy £2.94 for a sixpence. There's no threepence at this time, so onto the penny, which could buy 49p, so you know, 50p today, or a penny back then, a good comparison, and then 25p buying power for the halfpenny, 12.5p, or you know, 12-13p for the farthing, and then the half farthing worth about 6p, comparable to a 5p today. So you know, when coins had value back in this time, then the final monarch we'll look to is King George III, around the time of the Great Recoinage. And then for George III, the half crown now worth only, well I say only, but it's worth £13.42. So again, as the pound goes up, we're going back in time, so the pound looks to be going down. So £13.42 for the half crown. And by the way, as well as being worth more back in the day, coins also looked much better, we can all agree on that. We have a shilling worth £5.37, a sixpence worth £2.69. The penny was worth 45p, so still a good, you know, bit of decent, few pennies could buy quite a good few stuff back in the day. The halfpenny, 23p. The farthing coin, 11p, and then the half farthing, therefore, you know, about 5p once again. So coins that could definitely buy stuff. So there we go. There is the buying powers of old coins in today's money. Please do comment down below. Do you want us to do a video of the higher value coins, crowns, half sovereigns, any notes as well? What were they worth back in the day? If you do, then please do comment that down below, as well as leaving a like and subscribing, and we'll see you next time for more coins on Bits and Bobs. Bye for now.